Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
She just tells us it's could be like a miscarriage. And and so we're just like crushed. Yeah. And they, by law, they like scheduled or I don't know if it's a law, honestly, but they scheduled like a confirmation appointment with a separate like sonogram place just to like double check.
Yeah.
And
I don't know that it's a law, but it's protocol.
Yeah, It made sense, it's like, but we're just like, I remember like just like crying like so hard, and we were just like felt so empty. And
it's hard, man. It's hard.
Yeah, we were looking up, like she just was like, I remember I got her Wendy's, she's like, I just want Wendy's, like, so I'm like, all right, let's get Wendy's. And then she took a nap, and I just remember like looking on my phone of like, I was like starting to look at these like grief, like, things and forums, and like reading through, and I was reading about miscarriages, and I read different stories of like, okay, people like this, and so I was like, I didn't want to have like any hope, because I just like didn't want to feel the same like loss again. Right. So Bethany woke up, and we're gonna go to a second appointment. And I told her, I was like, listen, like, I don't want to get our hopes up, but like, I think there might be like a 5% chance, but we were still like just pretty downtrodden. And we went to the appointment, waited for the doctor, and he put the thing, on her belly, and he found it like 2 seconds in. It's like boom, 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 like found the heartbeat right away. He's like, she was okay. She was like perfectly healthy. And we were just like, so relieved. And so like this, and the reason I tell that story is because like I feel like that just like changed. Like there's certain things that happen in your life where you're just like, you can't really go back to like who you've been. Like when you're just in, such intensity, of emotion, where you really have to work to like, navigate through like your conscious thought and your sanity to like really process like what is happening. And that was like one of those things. And so actually the next day, keeping in mind like what my brother-in-law had told me of like, if your spirit has left the building, like I was just checked out of this first company. And so I quit the next day to go on my own. And that was kind of really what spurred like this, the journey of like doing, running my own business. And, I put some deals together throughout 2020. And our daughter was born prematurely in 2020. And like spent like 73 days in the NICU. That was another experience. It's like, it kind of really shapes you of just like, having faith. I feel like that was like a season. I was like, I have like no control over like how this is like gonna go. And I we could either be like super anxious and afraid, and or have faith that this is like, she's gonna be okay, healthy. Because there would be days where it's like they taught us, they usually have 2 steps forward, 1 step back. They like coach you with that, so that when there is a setback, she's like, you're watching, your child like struggle to breathe, or she just like can't eat, and they have to just like pump, a lot more like oxygen in. It's like, it's really hard to watch. And but I think it's just like having that long view of like faith and like being present, to, if you can help, but it's like you're kind of helpless in a sense there.
Well, you
But
do
that
what
was
you
like,
can. You do what you can, and as a man, you want to fix everything,
yeah.
right? And you
Yeah.
just can't. There's no way to fix this. All you can do is just be there and do what you can to support the people that are taking care of her, and and do what you can to support your wife, right?
Yeah.
And you just kind of just cling to each other and put one foot in front of the other. People, we've experienced miscarriages too, and it never one where they went where we got to sonogram stage and they couldn't find the baby. You know what I mean? Like, we never experienced that part, and that's got to be way more profound than what we experienced. But you want to try to fix it. You want to try to figure out a way to solve whatever this is, and there's no way to solve it, right? All you can do is just kind of, and people have expressed it, that I've talked to, have expressed it to me. People talk about day to day, day by day, right? This was like minute by minute, like,
Yeah.
time slows down and it's excruciating, right? You just do the best you can to keep processing, to keep moving forward, to keep doing what you can do to try to get through it as a couple, and it's tough, man. It's tough.
I feel like
I
that
can't even
it was a
imagine.
really good like test of different like these concepts, that we had learned, like from going through coaching and self development, where it's like you look at like no one can control what happens to them.
Right.
Like in reality, the only thing we have control over is like what that means to us, like
How we react to it. Yeah.
yeah, the meaning that we assign to it.
Mhm.
And like looking at like life, doesn't happen to us, believing that it happens for us. And that was like kind of what our attitude was, even with like the NICU situation. And so we just took that as like the blessing that it could be. And it turned out there was a lot of really cool things that happened inside of that, because we were able to rest, like, because you go home, it's very weird, like, to go home and your child is like in the hospital, but again, not like resisting, like, because like the concept of resistance of what is, it creates suffering. And so we just didn't want to suffer inside of that. And so it's like, okay, there's a point of acceptance of like the situation, in the sense of like being able to look at it like, how is this happening for us? And we were able to really recover. My wife was able to recover from a very traumatic birth. And we were able to sleep and I was still able to like be like engage with certain things in my business to help produce income. And another cool thing was like the nurses taught us so much about like how to care for a child. Like I feel like we got like almost this like world-class education for like 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Like every day, where you're a lot of parents, especially our friends now having kids, they're in the hospital for a day or two. And they might have taken some classes here or there before, but it's like, and then they're sleep deprived and like how trying to figure it out. It's like it's rough. And we got this like blessing of like being able to like recover from that intense situation and like learn. Like I feel like we were just like so like well trained by these these like nurses and but the other cool like the transition in my career was like later that year. I remember it's actually funny. It was Brian that this had to do with, because he was like, we were gonna partner on a deal, and I had it all negotiated out. It was a sick deal. It was in Normal Heights, and I think I had it negotiated for $470, a detached house. But there was a tenant, and this was like, COVID, where you're like, I don't know, I just felt scared, like with that of like, not knowing what, feeling a little uncertain. Brian,
it was a scary time, bud.
Yeah,
it was a scary time.
And Brian actually gave me
COVID created an atmosphere with regard to tenants and unlawful detainer and all that kind of thing that I hadn't seen in my entire career. And I've been doing this, coming up in February, I'll have been doing this 32 years, which is way too long, by the way. You should retire way sooner than this. Right? They should have put me out to pasture a long time ago. But it was a scary time because COVID and the shutdown and all that made our legislature go hard left, to where they were so pro-tenant that they were almost militant against landlords. And the unlawful detainer courts didn't have a choice but to follow that. They had to follow the law that was created, right? So, and the spirit of the law that was created. So, that's a legitimate fear, man. It really is.
Yeah. And like Brian actually gave me the thumbs up to whatever I decided. He's like, hey, I trust you, whichever way you want to go, like we can go. And I was like, I know, I backed out, I'm like, and then they ended up selling it to the person in line behind us, ended up buying it for like $490, I think. And then like more than us, like they wholesaled it for $540. Like they bought it and wholesaled it to someone else for $540, made $50,000, and that person flipped it and sold it in like the mid 700s. And I remember like just like the pain of like observing that. I was like,
yeah.
Damn. And my wife called me out. She's like, you need to, like, you are good at this stuff. Like you have to get over this like hump of like fear. And so then that's kind of where I really like turned it on. I was like, all right, gloves are off, like we're going hard. And that's when I started. Hold
on real quick. I have to interrupt you. So, and we're going to go back a little bit if that's okay, but real quick, there was something that your wife said that was profound, and you shared it with me. Pardon me. You shared it with me, and I can't remember what it was that she said, but there was something she said that was like, we never want to forget what it was that she actually said. Do you remember specifically what it was?
Like in this conversation or other conversations we've had?
Yeah, the one where she basically reset you, because you and I ran into each other right after this happened. I don't know if you remember this, but we ran into each other right after this happened, and I was asking you about the baby, right? And I was asking about your wife and how mama's doing and all that kind of stuff, and you're like, well, let me tell you what she did the other day, or what she said the other day, right? And he's like, and you're like, dude, it rocked my world. And I'm like, right? And you shared it with me, and I'm going, wow. Like, I didn't know your wife. I still don't know her that well,
Yeah.
I had such unbelievable respect for her after you shared with me what she said. What was it? Do you remember?
What is this podcast rated? Is it, can you cuss on here?
You can't cuss on here, so just use cleaner language that other than
she was like essentially in a very like confront. She was like, babe, you gotta stop being a wussy. You gotta.
That was it. It was something like, well, what are you going to do about it? Or something, it was something where she was just like, and I don't want to say it this way, but it was almost like she was questioning your manhood kind of thing, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And dude, I was like, this woman is world class, man. I like her a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was cool.
That-
It just
That's
makes
one thing
you
that
a
I've
good
like,
team. You know what I mean? Because when you need that swift kick in the tuchus, right? She's there to deliver it, right?
yeah,
And that's exactly what it was. It was something
yeah.
like when are you going to man up, or I don't know, something. I forget exactly what it was, but whatever it was she said,
Yeah,
completely. I mean, I was thoroughly impressed.
yeah. I'll have to ask her, but I like I can't honestly remember like what specifically it was, but I just remember it was like a very like,
Yeah,
what are you doing?
yeah,
Like you're playing it safe
yeah.
too much, and you need to recognize like you are good at this, and
Mhm.
you need to be able to like start trusting your judgment. And yeah, that was kind of really where I started like being the like a principal, like an owner in what I was doing and taking ownership. And um that's it's interesting now because I'm like working with other people now,
Mhm.
and it's like having that same type of mindset of like, I still like am taking ownership of the decisions I'm making, but I have, more baked in accountability inside that. But yeah, like I feel like when you've put your money on the line, when you've like put your skin in the game, and you've like recognized like where people's like different trepidations come in, and their fears, where they're bullish, where they're bearish, it's hard to relate to that unless you've had like something at stake.
Right.
And like,
And that was your thing. Okay. That was your thing. You were trying to get over that hump, and she recognized it. Right.
yeah,
She not only got you over that hump, she stuck a stick of dynamite in your tuchus and lit it on fire and said, here's some help over the hump.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Oh man. I mean, I was thoroughly impressed with her. I literally walked away from that. We walked a property, you and I, right?
yeah,
Away from that going, man, this girl's a stud. She is world class, man. So yeah, don't yeah. So you guys are a really good team.
yeah.
And she just is a big part of that team. So it was cool. Okay, so I need to interrupt you for just a second. We're gonna go back just a little bit with your permission. So I ask a few questions. Usually you were going on such a great
I know. It's
like roll. But let me just ask you a couple of real quick things that I normally ask everybody, right? So what was your favorite thing about growing up in that tiny little 900 number citizen town in Ohio?
huh, man, my favorite thing,
Right.
I would say, like it sounds weird, but it was like a little bit of like the consistency in a
Okay.
sense,
Okay.
where like, you kind of like grew up in the same environment,
Mhm.
which I appreciate now. I hated it then.
Yeah.
But just to be able to have like a place like to where like you can almost like,
It never changes.
yeah, like, so what was unique about the church my parents raised us in, it was a worldwide, thing.
Mhm.
And so I was able to be exposed to like different like people coming in,
Mhm.
to where like, even people in our town like didn't, it's like getting to hang out, with people from Africa and,
Brazil
Japan, and
yeah.
it was like, so I never went there. I never like really
Mhm.
traveled. It was just like, oh, like, so I think in my head, like I just was able to have this like awareness of like, I know I'm in this tiny place. I don't like it, but I understand that there's like a lot more out there.
Mhm.
And I think I always so I appreciated that, these mini like exposure things of just being able to be in a very like consistent and like you could say boring environment, but like knowing that there's like a lot, more out there. So I think marrying that up, with like my current self, of like, I like having a routine. I really like having, consistent like thing. I like, doing, I live a rather contained life, in a sense. So, and I'm comfortable with that.
Right.
I think because like I didn't really have a very like, interesting childhood, in certain senses.
I got you.
But I think I appreciate that, because of that.
So who was the most influential person to you growing up?
Man. I mean, I don't know, like what it depends on what age.
Well, just basically your childhood. So growing up, where you grew up, who was the most influential person to you growing up? So like when I grew up in Oklahoma, right? And from the time that I was brand new, I was out on a farm with my grandparents and my mom's parents, my maternal grandparents. And my grandfather by far was the most influential person in my life. My parents had a role,
Yeah.
but nobody affected me the way my grandfather did. So that's what I'm asking. Is there anybody that sort of stuck out that was the most influential person to you growing up?
Yeah, I would say, I guess the person that sticks out is like my grandma. She, like, we used to go visit her every year. We didn't spend like a ton of time with her, but she was always such a big presence like in our lives. And I just remember, and I didn't realize this until she passed away, but I realized how impactful she was like to me, because I was like, going to visit her was like the time where I felt like the most like safe, the most like free, the most like seen in a way. And I think I just like really, like, she just always built me up. Like she was the person that was like always like just looking like into my soul and speaking like, identity of like, this is like who you are, this is your potential, this is, and you can hear it from your parents sometimes, but like they have to they discipline you too. So it's I still have a few voicemails like saved from her, that I cherished, and like but yeah, that's an interesting question, because like I didn't, yeah, thank you for asking that, because that actually is a good like reminder.
That's cool, dude. You're welcome. So let me ask you another question. So in high school, what was your favorite subject?
I liked social studies a lot.
Why?
I think it liked enjoying, learning about the dynamics of, what led to certain historical events, and, learning about civics and, like history, geography. Like I love the different pieces that put together like how the world works. I think people connect to that in different ways. Like some people, might look at it through math or, science, but I just liked the people element of how they've influenced things for good and bad. And like, yeah.
That's cool. So your mission trip when you were gone for 6 months, was that was after you graduated high school? And was that in Austin? Were you in Austin for 6 months?
Yeah.
Okay. So what was your favorite thing about living in Austin?
Being on my own, like feeling like I'm not tied to my hometown anymore. It's like I'm like kind of like there's some familiar elements, it being in like a church type thing, but it's like a new place, and I think I felt like, oh, there's like a lot of like potential here and like exciting things. And I think I started to really like just get exposed to more like real life. So that was honestly my favorite thing, like out of all of it. And I lived with the other people, like we lived in the same complex, and just we became like really tight friends. I think there was like 8 of us, 7 or 8 of us, and it was like our posse. And so it was cool, like just being able to do that. But I would say the most thing that I like remember now is like just being able to be on my own.
Away from your wings a little bit.
Yeah.
So what made you move to Rochester?
A woman, beautiful woman.
Okay.
It was my wife. Yeah, I moved there 2 weeks before we got married.
Didn't she live in the Carolinas or something?
Yeah, she bounced around. She like was born in Florida, raised in Arizona, moved to New York, like upstate New York, halfway through high school. And then after high school moved to North Carolina. Okay. Then a few years later moved back to upstate New York where her parents and brother were.
Oh, got it. Okay. So she's there to be closer to family.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't need you to come here, like to Ohio.
Right.
Because that's but like she was actually thinking about moving to Austin for a bit. Okay. But then that fell through, and then I went back to Ohio. She went to New York, and then we got married not long after. So yeah.
So Rochester, you moved to Rochester. What made you get into car sales?
I don't even remember.
That's okay.
Yeah. I think that I tried to start a business. That's what I was doing. It was like 2015, and I actually worked for Bethany's brother for a little over a year, and they were super small company, and he ended up having to let me go.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what the heck am I going to do? But I'm like, I can start a business, and like coaching people, like consulting, and like looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I was like 23 years old, and like, I'm not taking advice from me then. Needless to say, I didn't make any sales. Yeah. And I was like, I need a job.
Yeah, you gotta go do something new.
I forget the connection. Do? She was a hairstylist.
Oh, okay.
She did that for 10 years.
Oh, that's cool.
So she did pretty well with it. Did it for a few years out here. And and then she stopped when our daughter was born. So stay-at-home mom.
That's cool. Yeah. That's cool. Okay. So you're in Rochester, New York, you're in car sales. What makes you come to San Diego?
Well, her parents moved, so they were no longer there. Her brother they were planning to move to Nashville. And so we're like, man, like we didn't have any like roots anywhere. Like, right. I was properly like from Ohio, but we never wanted to, move back there. Right. And her parents like weren't really super set anywhere. So we're like, where do we want to go? We went to she grew up in Tucson, like mainly. That's like where the bulk of her growing up was.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.